Hi everyone. First, I hope each of you is doing well and trying your best to stay safe and spirited. I'm coming to you today from my dining room table, where I'm grateful to have the opportunity to present one of this year's candidates for your annual acquisition. The work I'm introducing today is by the Chicago-based artist Dawoud, and the photograph is Untitled number 12, The Marsh, from Bay's 2017 series, Night Coming Tenderly Black. Night Coming Tenderly Black is a project consisting of 25 large-scale gelatin silver prints that form, in Bay's words, quote, a visual reimagining of the landscape through which fugitive slaves moved across the Cleveland and Hudson, Ohio landscapes as they made their way towards Lake Erie and the final 50-mile passage to freedom to Canada. The series depicts ordinary scenes that might look familiar to us as people who live in Ohio, but that represent a point of view whose energy is deeply contemplative. The light in each photograph has been specifically chosen as light that marks the beginning and end of a day. During these times, dusk and dawn, the landscape is either emerging from darkness or slipping into it. Photographically speaking, these are moments of low contrast light when the entire world appears in subtly differentiated shades of gray. In this light, the vistas represented in Bay's work look as promising as they do forbidding. These tracts of land and areas of water, forests, and houses are sights being gazed upon by a person thinking, first and foremost, about how to get to a place of safety. I first learned about Dawoud and his work while I was living in Chicago. In 2012, I taught a history of photography course to MFA students at Columbia College Chicago, where Bay was and still is a professor. His students raved about him, and I began following his work, which at that time primarily revolved around portraiture. Of this work, Bay has said, quote, what I have been trying to describe is a sense of the interior person. It's that sense of interiority that I try to provoke in the work around subjects such as the Black subject or young people who are not always within the larger social conversation thought of as having a rich interior life. I can see this in projects like Harlem, USA, which was the body of work shown during Bay's first one-person exhibition at the Studio Museum in Harlem in 1975. In 2013, Bay was commissioned by the Birmingham Museum of Art to create work commemorating the 50th anniversary of the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. The victims of this explosion in 1963 were 4 young girls, Addie Mae Collins, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley, who were each 14 years old, and Denise McNair, who is 11 years old. 2 boys, 13-year-old Virgil Ware and 16-year-old Johnny Robinson, were also killed that same day in racially motivated acts of violence. To reflect on the lives and untimely deaths of these 6 children, Bay created diptychs that paired photographs of current Birmingham residents, one the same age as one of the children in 1963, and one of a person who, in 2013, was the same age that child would have been had she or he still been living. In 2017, Bay was the recipient of a John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Fellowship, which is more commonly known as a Genius Grant, and it was at this point that Bay turned to landscape photography and began creating Night Coming Tenderly Black, a series inspired in part by the Langston Hughes poem Dream Variations, whose last lines read, Night coming tenderly, black like me. Night Coming Tenderly Black was exhibited at the Art Institute of Chicago in 2019, and it's currently on view at SF MoMA until May 25th as part of a full-scale retrospective exhibition of Bay's work titled An American Project. I had the good fortune to see Untitled number 12, The Marsh, in New York around this time last April at APAD. At that point, the wonderful candidates for the Contemporaries Vote 2019 had been selected, but I was already beginning to think about this work for our current vote because I was blown away by seeing it in person. Here I'm showing you a phone snap that I took, but it gives you some sense of the beautiful tones in this immersive silver gelatin print. I remember standing in front of it, being struck by the formal beauty of the print and how from this perspective it reminded me a bit of works from our collection, like Harry Callahan's Reed's Detroit, which was also taken in the Midwest. I also began thinking about the strong bonds it would form with the social change-oriented strains of our photography collection, represented by both the Photo League works and the contemporary photography acquisitions from the past decade, which many of you have been instrumental in helping CMA to acquire. But in a way, I'm even happier to be speaking about this photograph to you right now, when it can be part of a moment of focus within a year that has already, only a few months in, been filled with many different kinds of challenges. To my mind, this photograph resists the binary of looking forward or looking back, and asks us instead to contemplate a present that is marked by not only what happened, when and where, to whom, but also the individual thoughts and feelings that did and do shape horizons of possibility. As the artist Torkwase Dyson writes of this series, these photographs might offer a methodology for the ways we move today and in our dangerously precarious future. I ask, how do we invent new aesthetic forms that are imbued with radical ancestorship and that address our insistence on liberated spatial practice? To amplify this sentiment, she also quotes Roy de Carava, a photographer whose work heavily inspired the conception of this series. De Carava states simply, "I refuse to accept darkness as a limitation." So with that, I wish you good luck in your decision-making, contemporaries. I hope that casting your vote for our 2020 acquisition will feel like a somewhat joyful and positive action. I'm sending all of you my best and looking forward to seeing you in person very soon.